Welcome, everybody. If you're joining us live, this is the last session of the day on Women in the Metaverse VIP Day. And if you're joining us recorded, welcome. And I hope you enjoy all the content that we're sharing for Female Disruptors Virtual Summit, Women in the Metaverse. And tomorrow we have mental health and wellness, entrepreneurship, and I'll get into all that later. But I want to introduce to you Artsy Marie. She is going to talk about the future of females in social architecture. Hello, Artsy.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining and thank you for being a female disruptor.
Oh, absolutely. I've been shaking things up in the VR space for just under 2 years.
Yes, you have. I checked out all of your work and you've been doing some really, really cool stuff. And I just want to let everyone know that if you're joining us live, that we're going to leave around 10 minutes for Q&A. So just go ahead and put your questions in the chat for Artsy and I, and we'll get to them towards the end. We won't forget about you, I promise. So let's just get into it, Artsy. What is your background and how did you find yourself into virtual reality and architecture?
Yeah, so I've been an artist my entire life. Right before I went off to college, I started a photography business and I did professional photography for 14 years. And then throughout then I've done graphic design and illustration. I also started a online store for selling my illustrations called Pretty Darn Artsy. And so I've been crafty and artsy my entire life.
I like
I'm
that.
also an avid Sims player. That's how I, used to game. And then I discovered VR a few years ago during the pandemic. I, picked it up again and I was like, let me check out some of these social platforms because, we haven't been able to socialize that much. And I found myself in an art gallery hop in Altspace VR. And as an artist myself, I automatically saw the value in being a part of this community. So I built a gallery with the help of a guy in France. And the rest is history. I've been there ever since.
We've heard a lot of that today from our speakers, and as I'm doing interviews that, it hasn't been that long that they've been in either, whether it's NFTs or crypto or VR or AR, and a lot of it is, during the pandemic. There's a lot of time and everybody wanted to have some social interaction and social VR really took off. And so you said you're a photographer and then you were also a gamer, and it was kind of a natural fit for you to step into VR and look at it from an artistic standpoint. And I see like in your background, and I saw on your website, like all of these really cool environments. So how did that happen?
Yeah, so when I got in, it was a whole lot of hobbyists, right? There were people building worlds with the in-world tools, like in-app tools build worlds, kind of like Horizons. They already have a platform for you to come in and be a world builder. When I initially came in, the worlds that I saw, I thought were really creative. And I walked into a penthouse where somebody was playing hip hop music. And I was like, oh yeah, this is my vibe. I definitely want one of these for myself. And so I started teaching myself Unity, which is a game engine. So I could bring content into there. And I'm familiar with custom content for games because I used to make custom content for The Sims. And the more I networked, the more people wanted what I had. And so I made a business making other people's dreams come true in this VR space. So I've built all types of things for people.
You mentioned a couple different platforms, Altspace VR, Unity. So are you mostly building just in those types of platforms, or for example, and if you could also talk a little bit more about how you built this brand for yourself, just building social architecture, and is this what you do now full time?
Yes, it is what I do full time. So when I came into the space and I started building, I noticed that there was nowhere for me to go or my friends to go to get, a new loft or a new mansion or, a bar or something like that. And so I was that person. I dived in. So Unity 3D, the game engine, and Blender, I taught myself how to 3D model in Blender. So I make furniture and all of my like small details, as well as the architecture in Blender. And then I moved those over to Unity and into Altspace. And because that's so difficult for most people to do, I was able to find my niche in creating very luxurious environments. So I was building places that I'd want to travel to. And so you can see my logo down here, the Artsy. There's an Artsy on every single one of my templates in Altspace. And so there's not a whole lot to my my method as far as like branding. I just make sure it's in a location where people are going to see it. And the more times people started to see the Artsy, the more they were like, who is this person? Who built these spaces? Because I was pushing content out at a rapid pace. So I've been building 2 to 3 worlds every week since I started. And so now I've got over 160 templates. Like these are all templates that you're seeing pass by here. And each of them have my name on it. And so I also started a Patreon account. And so my Patreon, I give one free template or one template away every month to the community that supports me on Patreon. And there's been over 300 people to join my Patreon. So that makes up for over 3,500, almost 4,000 experiences on Altspace that have my logo on it, which is unheard of.
That's amazing. That's awesome. What's the experience been like as a woman in this type of industry?
It was definitely male dominated as far as world builders came when I was in there. But I feel like a lot of people, for one, I disrupted the market because there was no market, there was no social, creator economy. And I started that creator economy. So I got a lot of backlash because a lot of people were like, hey, we don't like, people charging for stuff. It's pretty taboo. And I'm just like, well, I've got to work. If I'm going to be in this space all day, every day, creating other people's dreams. So I came in, I started the businesses that I think other people wanted to start. And that's how I've been ever since. It's just, I keep going and I teach other people how to do it as well. And so now there's a huge creator economy in Altspace of people buying and selling these environments and kits to go inside these environments.
If somebody wanted to learn, do you offer courses and training, or do they just buy the templates and they can figure it out from there?
So up until this point, I've been doing lessons, like private lessons. But obviously once you get to a certain point, you can't do personal time with everybody. So I am working on my course right now, and I'll have several different avenues for those.
So all of these things that are happening in the background, the different environments are so beautiful. And I'm just wondering just how can we translate that from the real world to this type of world? Like, for example, I'll just use my husband. He's a luxury home builder in a single family area called Disney's Golden Oak. And he would love to create these virtual versions of some of the homes that he's created. So in a scenario like that, is that something that you could apply what you're doing with Unity to, like, in builders in real life, that they want to have virtual versions?
Absolutely. And that's one of the courses that I'm coming out with, is one specifically for architects, because I have so much reverence for architects. I wanted to be an architect when I was younger, and I want to be able to teach architects how to streamline and compress the buildings that they've designed already, because a lot of them aren't built for what mobile VR can handle, because it's a much smaller poly count and material count. You're kind of mixing architecture and game development and game design all in one. And so I would, absolutely love to help architects bring their stuff in.
That's brilliant. And so who are your typical customers, clients that are buying your templates or hiring you to build the different environments? Who's coming to you?
So the one on my screen right now is Naughty by Nature. So there's a lot of music artists coming into the space that want their entire metaverses built out. And so I built
Awesome.
8 worlds for Naughty by Nature, and they're now part of our community, and they socialize with us. So a lot of people are coming in and being able to tap into their fan base in a different type of way. I have a lot of small business owners that want to come in and bring their real life vision to VR. And then I have a lot of like the people on my Patreon, they're not creators, but they are creative. So they don't know how to build. They're like regular, gamer types, social gamers, and they just want to have nice spaces to hang out in. And then there's people like podcasters or club owners, people that like directors want to bring their movies to life, to help promote their movies in these spaces as well.
So are you in VR all day?
No. I'd probably put my headset on 4 or 5 days out of the week, but only for a few hours at a time. When I first got into VR, I was in there all the time.
Yeah, it can be a little
5
bit.
a.m.
Yeah, you get really kind of like dizzy, and I mean, it's really fun, but if you're in it for too long, it could be, I think, a little bit toxic. And that was actually some of the topics that I've asked, crypto and NFT and the whole industry. There's a lot of FOMO, and it's hard to just step away because you're afraid you're going to miss something. And I would think it would be very similar to you. It's like before the pandemic, we were already in this like, mode of like, how do we step away from digital? And now it's like, we're wearing digital, we're like immersed in digital constantly.
Yeah, I think there's a novelty effect to VR right now. So not everybody wants to stay in VR, right? Because they are, like the headsets are big and they're bulky. They're, so it can be straining on your eyes. And then some people find that they're dissociating real life, from their virtual life. And so it's kind of.
So they're really living just their virtual life and less their physical life.
I think there's a healthy merge. I don't know anybody. I haven't ran into anybody that is on there excessively. If they're on there excessively, they're mostly being creative.
What is your favorite project?
I think everything I've done for the Harlem Film House. My partner, CR Capers, she came into the space to bring in her nonprofit. And everything that I've done with her has been over the top and pushing my limits as an artist and a creative.
That's another interesting angle. So the nonprofit angle. So how can nonprofits benefit from creating these social environments?
So her nonprofit, for her, it's bringing an awareness to her nonprofit. I feel like that's the best way for other companies to come into the space, is to want to offer something to the community, as well as utilizing it for, brand recognition. So she's very engrossed in the community. She does a lot of charitable work within there. I also have a friend, we call him Rockadala. He throws parties every Thursday night at his club premiere that I built, which you'll see on the slides at some point. But he does charitable offerings there as well, using a 50-50 raffle. And so there's anytime somebody in the community needs financial help, or they're sick or anything like that, the community comes together to raise money.
And speaking of community, Nava was on earlier talking about, building community, the Brene Brown way, and, pretty much everybody that's been on today had the word community has come up, and how important community is, whether it's crypto, NFTs, or virtual worlds. Can you talk a little bit about, like, what are your tips about creating community, and how can brands do it better, or what are some mistakes that brands are making?
Absolutely. So I don't this video is probably too long, but when I came into this space, I didn't necessarily have, dollar signs in my eyes. For me, it was being a part of this atmosphere, being a part of other people's lives, like being genuinely interested in other people. And I find that, like, you being in the space, willing to have conversations with people creates community. And so for me, another way that I created community was my Patreon. So making sure that there was a central place where all the people that actually supported me and loved my work could give me feedback. They could ask for certain things. And they've definitely in return just helped my brand grow. And I think it's important that you're just genuinely interested in other people, because these are real people. We all have real life issues. We have real life, triumphs, and coming out and supporting other people's events. It's definitely big in there as well. We don't take anything for granted when you come in, because a lot of people are building their new social life from scratch in these spaces. And so I think I have more community in VR than I've ever made in real life.
That's awesome. That is so awesome. So what do you see as the future? Where are you gonna do this? Like, what is your future right now? Like, in the past 2 years, so much has changed, it seems like, for you since the pandemic. You went from just, not just, but a photographer is like very exciting and artistic, but now you're doing something seems like completely different, and it's really kind of taken on a whole new life of itself. Like, what do you see as your short-term or long-term future?
It has. And I have no idea what's going to happen in the next 2 years, because I couldn't have told you I'd be doing this 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was taking a course to learn how to market my products online, and I got into VR, and it completely changed my career. I've definitely made more money this year than I've made in any single year in my entrepreneurship. And I think it's because I'm at the beginning, of this movement, and
You are, yeah.
at the beginning of this technology, and I'm doing things that people haven't thought of, and utilizing the technology in a positive way. And so a lot of people are interested in that. So I am a little bit into the Web3 space. I did, publish my first NFT, or mint my first NFT, and I am a full-time team member on the NFT Oasis, in the NFT Oasis company. So for me, I'm going to be training a lot this year, sprucing up my skills as a game designer. And then hopefully next year, I will be flourishing as a teacher in the space and teaching a whole lot more people how to do what I do, because we need as many creators as possible. And I can't do it all by myself. And I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah. And we don't want you overwhelmed. We want you to share the knowledge and pass it on to other women and take advantage of the opportunity. What advice do you give other women who want to get into the space, maybe based on your experience? And it seems like things are changing so quickly that, would it be the same today? You said it was a little bit, when you first got into the space, you were judged and very disruptive, which is a good thing. That's why you're here. Is it the same now? And what advice do you give women?
I definitely made it possible for other people to come in and ask for what they deserve. And for me, that's the biggest, it's my biggest accomplishment today. It's just making sure other people could come behind me and make a full career out of this. And I'm seeing it happen. I'm watching it happen. I'm training a very close apprentice to me right now, who is just as talented and will be taking over quite forcefully very soon. I would tell women in general to use your feminine energy to create these spaces, because a lot of times, especially in social VR, when people think about the future, it can be quite sterile. It can be cold. I think bringing your feminine energy to creating these spaces just makes them feel like home to people and makes them feel safe. And for me, there's an energy with creating these spaces that makes them so powerful. And so use your power for good and make people feel great in these spaces. And I think that's where we can thrive as women. And there's plenty of content for you to learn how to start 3D designing from scratch using Blender, and game development using Unity. And they're all free.
I love that advice. And just from an entrepreneur standpoint, what advice do you give women into maybe giving up their day job, or giving up maybe something that they're doing now that they just, their heart is not in it, and they are looking for something that is going to bring them joy?
First step would be to definitely get engrossed in these platforms. Whatever platform calls out to you the most, definitely tour around, scope out the field, and see where you fit in. And then, dive straight into teaching yourself and putting content out there. I think one of the most important ways to market yourself is to share. And so other people can't find out what you're doing. They can't want what you have if you don't share it. So always share.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm seeing on Twitter, a lot of it, this is in the NFT conversation, but this isn't something they're teaching in college. So, I see, these messages on Twitter saying, I'm going to drop out. I just dropped out the semester to focus 100% on NFTs, or, different parts of this industry, because there's such an amazing opportunity. And what advice do you give to college students that are, really just wanting to jump into the space, and they're afraid by the time they graduate, this opportunity is not going to be there?
Pull double shifts, right? Depending on what you're in college for. This space, I think it's important to know that it is very lucrative, and it's going to be a huge part of the market. And there's, plenty of room for everybody. I would say if you're already interested in designing, you're already interested in art, to, utilize what's already out here and get started. I wouldn't say drop everything you have right now to get into it, but if you believe in yourself, and you know that you're worth the risk, then, you make your own calculated risks. For me, I've never had a job. I've always been a risk taker. And so I've always been on this tightrope of being an entrepreneur. And for me, that's been completely fine, because I don't have other responsibilities other than myself. But I always bet on myself. And so it wasn't too long ago in 2020 or 2019 that I had no money. And I was stressed. I remember talking to my mom, and I was just like, I've been an entrepreneur and I've been an artist for 15, 16 years, and I have nothing to show for it. And now that story is completely different, because I betted on myself and I just got to work.
I love that. I love that. What are some of the fails that you've made that you would do different, or advice that you could share with entrepreneurs out there that are just maybe struggling the same way you were a couple of years ago?
Money management, education about money, a lot of us didn't grow up with that. Anybody holding our hand and walking us through, the types of things that, make for long-term plays. Other than that, I would say ask for what you're worth, find out what you're worth, actually doing the calculations of what it takes to run your business, and then multiply that tenfold. I've been guilty of not asking for what I'm worth. And when you're overworked and underpaid, eventually you end up broke. So
True.
I think
yeah, and that was
yeah.
Yeah, that was actually one of the messages in Kathy Hackle's keynote is that find out what, the male counterparts are being, are making, and are you getting paid as much as a speaker that's a male? I mean, chances are like the odds are still against us that we're getting paid less than our male counterparts. And that part is something that, I mean, the budget is there,
Yeah. I find that in this space as well. I already know my colleagues are making more than I am. And they probably don't have to ask for it. I have
That
to
is very
prove,
frustrating.
I have to prove that I'm here. Even to Microsoft, I have to prove that I'm here. A lot of people get the opportunities that I should have gotten, but I'm a woman and I'm a Black woman in tech. And that, makes me have to work harder to stand out.
That's what we're changing this year.
Yeah.
That's why we're here right now. We're changing that for sure. Well, we can, I think Nava is here making some really nice comments. And are there any questions out there that we have for Artsy to share some of her tips and wisdom? And Artsy, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share with the female disruptors here?
I think this has been quite thorough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, less is more. Like we want to get to the point, and thank you, Shar. So yeah, we're here to be change agents this year and, say enough is enough when it comes to equal pay, abuse of power, sexual harassment, and everything that we've just been putting up with, ageism, whether it's because you're too young or too old or just turned 40 or, whatever the rationale is. So that's what we're all here to learn from each other. So we have a question. What is the best entry-level platform to start out?
I would definitely recommend Altspace. It's free to create. You don't have to have any money to create in Altspace. I would say using the tools that are available already inside of Altspace is the best entry-level way to start understanding what 3D is in terms of building blocks. I think Horizons is also, if it's open to the public now, is also a great platform for you to play with primitive shapes to create these different structures or environments that you want to build.
I started out on Altspace and Facebook Spaces. And I wasn't building on Altspace, but it definitely is easy and very, for the most part, user-friendly. If it, I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it definitely was easy for me to kind of jump in and figure things out. Is that one of the little videos that you were showing earlier? Was that one of those was Altspace, right?
All of these are in Altspace.
Oh, they are. Okay. So these you're building in Altspace.
So these I build in Blender, and then I port them over to Unity just to do like the game dev stuff, like adding colliders and do lighting and stuff like that. And then I port it over to Altspace.
So for brands, let's say they wanted to do some sort of an event, an immersive event on Altspace, they could come to you and say, please, we would love for you to create this. Let's just say it's New Year's Eve or maybe Valentine's Day. We want to have a Valentine's Day party virtually in Altspace. They could come to you and you could design that.
Right. And I've already built a few very intimate spaces. I do have what's called Love Island, and Love Island is a great event space for that type of Valentine's Day get together. So I do have templates that I've already made that I can rework and rebrand for other brands if they want that, but I also can build from scratch.
Awesome. Nava is asking, what inspires you when you dress up your avatar?
I actually wear the same thing every day.
That makes it easy.
Yeah, my avatar, you can see her. This is her down here.
Yeah.
She is, she wears that same dress, and I might change the color depending on the occasion, but everybody knows me to be in that dress. So when they see me, they see that dress. If other people are in that dress, the way that I wear my dress, they're like, you're in artsy stress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not, yeah, you don't own that. Artsy owns
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So Vince, yeah, I love that. Vince is saying, I really appreciate your 10+ year journey. How do you experience resilience in your journey?
I have actually, like, I've had some really bad experiences, um, bullying with inside this space. Um, I mean, inside this space and other spaces. I think being a professional, in a like a I overachieve in what I do. It makes me a target sometimes, um, and I had to overcome a lot of my um, insecurities about those experiences uh, by my spiritual practices. So I do a lot of energy clearing and um, subconscious remapping.
Can I ask what type of energy clearing do you do? Like, what does that look
So
like?
my favorite method is the emotion code. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's where you can like you bring to the surface something that you are struggling with, and then you go through this list um, with I use a pendulum, and it brings me to an emotion that I can clear that relates to what's having me like a trapped energy. So I can release trapped energy from myself.
And you do that by yourself?
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
I
I just
used to
started
do it for
doing,
other people too.
okay, yeah, it sounds like something that you could do for other people where it'd be
Yeah.
hard to do it for yourself, it seems like, but maybe not.
Mm-mm. I used to have a nonprofit called the Spirit Garden, and
Ah,
yeah,
I love
I used
that
to
name.
teach people how to heal themselves. So that's one of those.
That's awesome. So Zarkara, I think I'm pronouncing his name right. Hi, how are you? We just met last week on LinkedIn. He's a big fan of this event. Um, he is a 22-year-old entrepreneur living in Paris. He's created the Mackenzie of the metaverse and NFT economy, which he just shared. And do you have any questions about social architecture? He's saying, I love what you do. And thanks for being authentic, and your experience is awesome. And I agree. I was going to say that I started doing this just this year, Qigong, and it's a way to, intensify positive Qi and positive energy that I always kind of was like, I don't know, kind of looked like a little bit like weird people doing it, but it works so well
Yeah,
that I'm like really, really, kind of like obsessed with energy building and things that can, you don't have to necessarily do something physical. You can like, you know, raise the chi and really create positive energy by certain techniques, like the one that you're describing sounds like one of them.
hmm I also do tapping. Um,
Yeah,
so
my daughter used to do that.
I'm
Well,
certified
I
in that.
mean, the qigong has a lot of tapping involved,
Hmm.
right? Have you ever done it before? And my daughter did the tapping, and I interviewed somebody with the tapping, and it was very effective. But the qigong is a lot of like kind of like knocking on certain parts of your body to get the qi going, and it really does work.
Yeah, yeah. I love all energy work really.
Betsy says she loves
Quite
tapping.
magical. Yeah,
Awesome. And then
tap it
one
out.
last question from Nava. She said, what inspires you?
My clients. Most of my work is for my clients. It's me, like I like, and it's been this way since I was in photography. Um, I'm able to pick up on who people are really quickly, and uh, I'm able to transmute, I guess, what it is that they are trying to explain to me into something visual. And so for me, it's being able to walk into one of these spaces for the first time with my client, and their jaw drops to the floor where they start crying because they didn't know that their vision could really come to life. And so
That's
for me,
awesome.
it is genuinely my care about bringing other people's dreams to life.
That's
That's
amazing.
why I learned what I do, and I go so hard with it.
That's awesome. I mean, the one thing is, I worked with clients for the past 20 years, and I'm sure you've experienced clients that drain your energy instead of giving you energy. And that's just that's just one piece of advice that I give to everybody, is that you can't work with people or surround yourself with people that are draining your energy and taking your energy. They need to be pumping that positivity into you to otherwise it's not worth it.
Yeah, I've maybe had a handful that were pretty difficult to work with, but I do really good work, and so I pay a lot of attention to what people ask for, and I try to give them what they ask for. So normally my projects they go by really quick and without a hitch.
Awesome. Betsy's asking, do clients send photos, and what is the process I was wondering the same thing, like when you were just saying that, what is the process to create a world and how long does it take?
Yeah, so I used to bring people straight into my office. I had a big, tall glass office in alt space.
Mhm.
And we
Neat.
would actually sit at my desk and we would talk about what they want. And people do people do send pictures. They don't send a lot. For even a lot of people, it's hard for them to find like a concept of what because what I'm doing really is I'm making things that have never been seen before. So there are a lot of elements that can be implemented into these worlds that are impossible to do in real life. And so a lot of it is trying to make up what people want based on the type of functionality that they want. So some people, I always ask people to name what's the purpose of the space. What do you want people to feel when they come into it? And how many different like sections? And then if they have like a general type of theme, if they can find color schemes with that theme, and then I kind of bring all of that together for them in a vision.
Awesome. Any other tips on mental health and wellness that you can share? Because this is, being in this digital industry and digital worlds and virtual worlds, it definitely, like we said earlier, takes a toll. So just wondering, besides what you've already shared, anything else that you can share?
Yeah, so definitely manage your time in these spaces. It can be fun, but it can also be overwhelming. It is a small microcosm of the larger community of humans. And so there's no short of drama that happens in these spaces. And I think it's really important to know that you're not going to be the first to do something. You're going to be the one to do it your way. And so the competition is in there as well. And that can knock people off their place when they thought this was, like a completely imaginary world. This is a world with real people in it. So there's real life problems and real life amazing things that happen. But managing your space in here, making sure that you're doing enough movement. For me, I know I spent way too much time sitting in front of a computer this year. Utilize VR for what it's good for. It's great for working out. There's great meditation apps on there. And there's great ways for you to just really stress. So I say utilize it in ways that are beneficial to your psyche and your mental and your spirit, because you could definitely go the opposite way.
I love that. Sakara, do you have a question that you want to ask in the chat? Betsy saying you turn their thought into a digital thing. Yes, he wants to know if you're going to Europe soon.
Haven't had any plans to go to Europe, but I can.
And meet in alt space.
There's a lot of
focusing. He means focusing on the Europe market versus the US market. Yeah. Are you doing anything basically he's saying that there's not an Artsy in Europe and they need you.
The great thing about virtual reality is that my clients are across the world. So yeah. I think if there are people that want to learn, as soon as my course comes out, I'm sure people all over the world will be able to access it and become their own artsies.
Yes, I love your name. Well, thank you so much. I think that we've answered all the questions, and it's been really, really fascinating learning your social architecture and your journey and seeing your portfolio going in the background. It's inspiring me to want to go visit all those social VR places that you've designed, and I want to get back into Altspace and see if I can find any of your projects.
Yeah, so if you go to my website, www.artsyvr.com,
Mhm.
I have a list of world codes that you can start with. I also have a main hub where people can start as well. Um, if you're in Altspace, um, my world code is IBZ856, and that's how you get to my first hub, and then you can travel to a bunch of my worlds from
Oh,
there.
awesome. Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to check that out.
Yeah.
Any last words of wisdom before we call it a day?
Definitely stay plugged in with me on my Instagram at artsyandvr. I have a Patreon where if you are an avid Altspace user or a new Altspace user, you can sign up and you'll get access to my library of templates so that you can use them for both commercial and personal use.
Awesome. Well, Artsy, thank you so much for ending on such a very special note on the VIP day. And I hope that you'll join us in the sessions tomorrow and in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.